What's up, everybody? Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. It's draft week. The Senator Phil Perry's alongside. And fans, I don't need to tell you, but the Patriots have faded a bit in the last 5 years. Haven't won a playoff game since the 2018 Super Bowl. Got bludgeoned by Buffalo the last time they were there. 4-13 team last year, and they earned that. Okay? This is their opportunity this week. Okay? Most important draft, Phil, they've had since 93. And that one laid that foundational brick of Drew Bledsoe. This draft determines how the rest of the decade goes. It's in the hands of a personnel department, though, that's in flux. And that personnel department, Phil, is going to select players and put them in the hands of a coaching staff that's a little wet behind the ears. This group is juggling chainsaws. Get it right. Nobody gets hurt. There's a lot of oohs and ahs. You make a mistake and it's going to get messy, and they'll be right back where they are today. And no, I'd say about 2028. You're going to miss this whole process when it's over and there's actual players, Phil?
I am going to miss it. I disagree with you on it's going to destroy them for a decade if they get it wrong.
No, the rest of the decade. It's not going to kill them until 2034, but it's 2024. You butcher the quarterback, you're in for 4 years.
Yeah, that's closer. That's closer to where I am. Yeah, so you're right.
Your just default setting is disagree with Tom.
Disagree with Tom. That's why we have such a highly rated podcast. What are you talking about? Should be thanking me.
All right, we got a lot to get to in this program, including the opportunity for you folks to hear from Brian Hoyer, Patriots former backup and starter at different junctures. He's going to join us to talk and analyze the 4 different players that the Patriots have entertained at the quarterback position. It's May, it's Daniels, it's McCarthy, it is Michael Penix. So we had him in the studio. We did a Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of thing. That's all on YouTube. It's going to be on our draft shows, which we have Thursday night, a 5-hour special on the draft. But we also have some Brian Hoyer that we're going to intersperse here as well. We're also going to talk trades, wheeling, dealing. Are the Patriots doing some of that this week? And how tenuous is the grasp on reality that Elliott Wolf has? But first things first, Phil. What is your feeling on what the Patriots will do at 3 first, and then what they should do at 3?
I think they luck out in that there are 3 really good quarterbacks in this draft, and they'll have the opportunity to take the one that I think could end up being the best of the bunch, and that's Drake May. I envision Caleb Williams going 1. I envision Jaden Daniels going 2. I think the Patriots will take Drake May, and that is what they should do. I would agree with them if that's what ultimately happens.
I talked to a highly trusted NFL offensive mind yesterday for a long time about all these quarterbacks. And he said that May is the least ready of the 4, which, depending on where that guy's going, might not be a big deal. But when you're going to a situation, and I talked about this months ago, and I'm still talking about it, the Patriots situation isn't great, objectively speaking. New head coach, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, offensive assistant, and McAdoo, McCartney, and Van Pelt, who haven't worked together before. It's not a great roster. You don't have an established left tackle. You're low budget at wide receiver. The situation isn't great, and you have to develop him more than anyone else. So I don't have a huge misgiving about May if the situation were better. I do have that misgiving, though.
I would actually say this. I think you'd be worse off with JJ McCarthy in this situation than you would be Drake May. At least Drake May has the physical tools. This is my opinion. He has the physical tools to be able to do some things on his own that I haven't seen JJ McCarthy do. And he is much more accustomed to being in less than ideal situations than JJ McCarthy is. Could you imagine dropping JJ McCarthy, who has had a tremendous offensive line for 2 years and has done nothing but win, and drop him into this situation? I think it'd be a nightmare.
It's a good point. I'm going to push back on the first portion because I think that McCarthy has greater foot speed, and I think he can throw on the move as his number and under pressure on 3rd and longs, which a team like this will face a lot. Very, very, very well. And I think that he's faster than May. And I think his footwork's better. And I think he'll be more solid and fundamentally sound. But you're exactly right.
McCarthy, I think fundamentals behind the Patriots offensive line go out the window.
No, you're right. You're right. It's an X factor. He has not yet lived in chaos. Drake May lived in chaos. And how did he look? A hell of a lot worse than he looked the year before. So is he on
a little strong?
He's just so conditioned.
You're making it sound like he's a terrible player, and he's not.
I am not.
He's not just. He's
he
not.
is the best player for this team in terms of size, resilience, physical ability, poise. He is the best fit for a shit team until you get him on the field and realize he's going to a team that really is untested in terms of developing players.
Well, that's for sure. No doubt about that.
I got an agreement.
And I would also say, why do you have to play him now?
Because Elliot, the greatest cheat code financially in the National Football League and perhaps professional sports is a quarterback on a rookie contract. So I'm not arguing for McCarthy or Daniels necessarily. I am arguing for a much more malleable stance on trading down. Because I wouldn't mind seeing the clock start in 2025 on a quarterback. Now, that's not going to friggin' happen. We've already been through this. If it's not any of those three that we've mentioned, it's going to be Michael Penix. But I still think that this situation is so tough that you're not going to get a lot of yield. This is going to be a Bledsovian rookie year. For Drake May, I continue with the Bledsoe comp. He's not as tall. His arm isn't as strong. He's a hell of a lot faster and more mobile and agile. But all the off-field stuff stands up. Stoic, tough. He's going to be out there every week. He fits the quarterback suit. And how did Drew Bledsoe look in his rookie year? Not too good for a 5-11 team that won the Final Four down the stretch, but he had a 5-pick game. It was a horrible team. And Drew was at the controls. Enough said on that. From me. You want to keep talking, you can.
No, so I said that they will and they should take Drake May. You're saying they will take Drake May. They should trade down, is what I'm hearing. Which is where you
that's
were
a hypothetical. That's a hypothetical and a dependent. If they get 4 draft picks, they get 4 first-round draft picks, or they get 3 first-round draft picks and a top-tier, top-of-the-line Pro Bowl level player, not all Pro Bowl level player, then yes, I think they should trade down. Otherwise, take Drake May. I love J.J. McCarthy. I think he's going to be high-end. I'm going to make this case before I say the name. Go ahead.
I just want to say to you, as someone who enjoys your football takes and who
you think I'm a take machine, though.
You're not a take machine. I believe you believe in J.J. McCarthy. I just want you to say they should take J.J. McCarthy. You like him more than Drake May. They should.
What I like more, Phil, is trading down and staffing your team. I like that more than McCarthy or May.
So then say one of those two things and don't say they should take Drake May, which is what you just told me.
No, I said they will take Drake May.
What should they do in Tom's opinion?
Again, I started to say this, Phil. Here we go again. Low blood sugar. Started to say this, that if they get a proposal that has at least 3 first-round picks and a Pro Bowl level player, do that. But that's a hypothetical, so it's really hard for me to say, hey, the Patriots should do this.
I get it.
So I can't.
What if I tell you, what if the parameters are they're staying at 3 and they don't have a trade offer? I would rather see J.J. McCarthy. Okay. That's all I was looking for.
Okay, watch this, though. I want you to listen up, folks.
It's like pulling teeth getting a take out of you sometimes, even though you are a take machine.
I'm just a take machine.
Fired.
I don't work for nobody but NBC Sports Boston. This was the poll I put up earlier today. And I know that I'm in the deep, oh my God, my minority has grown. I said to the people, if you were running the draft, what would you do at number 3? Just take Drake May. Thank you very much. 63% of you. Trade down. Phoenix later. 19.5% of you. Bray and J. Daniels is there. 13.4% of you. 3.8% of the population of Patriots fans and the 2,603 people who voted so far said, I'm taking J.J. McCarthy. We could fit, if there were 100 people, we could fit all four of us in a room. We could fit them all in a Volkswagen and have plenty of room.
It would be you,
a Mini Cooper.
It would be you, Mr. and Mrs. McCarthy, and who else? JJ.
Phil, secondary topic on the quarterback position. We have seen the odds from Washington vacillate between a dead heat that it would be Daniels or May. And now Daniels has once again pulled into the lead with Washington. Adam Peters, the Commanders GM, says, I'm not trading. We know what we're doing. We're set. Who's it going to be?
I think they're going to take Jaden Daniels. What I've heard, including from someone who knows Adam Peters, is that Jaden Daniels has been enough of a handful, so to speak, that this person thought the Commanders might be leaning more towards taking Drake May. It feels as though, however, things have been ironed out between Daniels, his camp, and the Commanders since the Topgolf visit, which is just a funny sentence to say. And so I think the Commanders front office will be able to understand what they understand about Jaden Daniels, the player, what they think about him as the person, understand that once he gets to town, there's a good chance he'll like it there. Mm-hmm. And they'll end up taking him second overall.
Well, that puts that to bed. Meanwhile, we've talked a little bit about trade scenarios, and Diana Rossini, friend of the program from The Athletic, highly respected national reporter, she had a tweet yesterday that was Patriot-centric. Now, there are unbelievable pressures on national reporters right now to make sure you have intel. Not doubting at all the intel of Diana Rossini, or that she had somebody say to her when she stated the Patriots are involved in trade talks this week. Elliott Wolf is running point. Jonathan Kraft is heavily involved in the direction and conversations. I paraphrase. Here's what I know. As of early evening on Monday, there had not been a trade offer that rose to the level of being presented to ownership. Now, as to how it would be presented and whether or not Jonathan Kraft would have immediate veto power and an opinion on whether or not it was a good move football-wise, that wouldn't happen. So there's been no offer presented to ownership because no solid offers have materialized. And secondarily, as with the Bill Belichick era, ownership expects to be looped in on what's going to happen. It's the third overall pick. Doesn't matter if it's, the third overall pick, the 15th overall pick, a third rounder. Bill Belichick was looping the Krafts in, and they're going to expect that here. Because, Phil, what they don't want is to, in April, as they did in 2017, have a player like Jimmy Garoppolo have it out there from Adam Schefter, who is tremendously well-aligned with the Patriots when Bill Belichick was here, say, Patriots aren't moving Jimmy Garoppolo for 4 first-round picks. Then 7 months later, when they're presented with, we're going to trade Jimmy for a second rounder, Robert Kraft is saying to Jonathan, is that enough? Are we sure we want to do? Is that enough? Because it's such a come down. And of course, that wasn't vetoed. They went on with it. But they want to be looped. But I do want to emphasize again that Jonathan Kraft is, as far as I can tell, as far as I can have been told, is not involved in football making decisions. He's not scouting. He understands his limitations, as does his dad. And I want to ask you this. Consider the implausibility of the Krafts, Phil, forcing a pick at number 3 on the coaches and the personnel people that they don't want. Jonathan Kraft sitting there with a big stogie in his mouth saying, yeah, we're taking May. Think about that. Does that make any sense at all as to the way they've done their business?
It doesn't, and it doesn't make sense as to how they want to do their business, meaning if that's the route they're suddenly going to take, if they're suddenly going to be Jerry and Stephen Jones, then I don't know, like, why even have Elliot Wolf there at all?
Yeah,
you know
I
what
mean,
I mean? If,
well, you
if
could
it's
say
as soon as Bill Belichick is out the door, we're just gonna take over, then just take over. You don't need to go through the whole charade.
You could devil's advocate and say, well, they got Elliott there and he's an interim, so he's a patsy and he'll do whatever they want. I don't think that's the case by any stretch of the imagination. But here's the other aspect of it. Think about it. After 31 years of ownership, I think it's been demonstrated to them time and again that the people in the football office know way more than they do about the football players. They know the personnel, they know the positions, they know what their offensive coordinator, quarterbacks, coach, equipment manager, everybody else knows. So they will do what Robert Kraft said at the introductory press conference for Gerard Mayo. We will hold our people accountable. So get it right, and you won't have to sweat it. You won't have to go, Jonathan, you said we should do this. Robert, you said we have to do that. Now, talking about a top flight quarterback, I think that was, objectively speaking, overstepping if you want to appear to be somebody who's not exerting pressure. Phil.
Yeah, and that's fair, especially for a guy who, as you said, he's still the director of scouting. He is not the general manager. He's not the vice president of player personnel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He is director of scouting, Elliot Wolf, and it's been made clear that they're going to be doing front office interviews once the draft is over. And so for the owner to say something like that, I really would love to, one way or another, come away with a top rate young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You're letting the guy know the guy wants the long-term job, and I think he's going to do the right thing, Tom, in his mind. He's going to do the right football thing for the football team. Elliot Wolf will. But human nature is human nature. The person that you're hoping employs you has made it clear what his desires are. Mm-hmm. Are you gonna go against those as you're trying to establish yourself and win a job? It would take a lot of guts. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I mean, when he's 82 and he's accustomed to a level of winning, and he believes very much that it's coach and quarterback, Robert has said publicly and privately. Additionally, you're putting yourself in a situation where you're making it so that Robert has to go out and apologize to the fan base for not providing them with a quarterback. Imagine that. Well, we really wanted one, but the next thing you know, I love Christian Darrisaw. I mean, you can't. Once we got Darrisaw, I was a clincher. So I do think that even saying that, the adamant tone of the Kraft's non-involvement in football has been so persuasive to me as to better all believability about them sitting around smoking stogies and saying, what about this kid from Slippery Rock? They're not doing it. But
there is a receiver from Slippery Rock this year that I'm interested in, just FYI, but we can talk about him later.
Much later. On to the next topic of conversation, because it's trade talk, and we have talked about it. We have reported it. We've talked about it on an early edition. We've talked about it on BST. We've talked about it right here. The Patriots would love to make a trade. They'd love to make a trade for an X. They didn't get Calvin Ridley. They still have a hoop ton of money. They'd love to extract somebody from another team. My feeling, they could get A.J. Brown. Done. I've got a sense of that from but Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, let's party. So who would you like to see the Patriots go and get? And when would this unfold, Phil? Would this unfold Thursday night into Friday? Would this unfold Friday morning? Would this unfold Friday afternoon? Because that's where I think the sweet spot is, that number 34 pick.
Yeah, it could happen after the first round. I mean, if the Niners, who are picking at the end of the first round, for example, have some receiver that they absolutely love fall into their lap and they say, we got to take this guy, especially understanding that Brandon Ayuk is in the last year of his contract, then maybe it's done Friday. Listen, draft doesn't start again until Friday night. So you got all these working hours during the day for those conversations to happen and for something to get done. And for you to, even as the Patriots, make a phone call to Brandon Ayuk himself, for example, or his agent, and say, hey, what's going to take to work out a deal? Because if you're going to make that trade, you got to get a deal done too. It's not like we will woo you for a full season and then you will sign with us. No. Once he's acquired, you make the deal soon thereafter, long-term extension to big money. So I think it could happen as soon as Friday morning. Let's say that.
My understanding is too that Ayuk has been given clearance to explore that. Is that will you also understand to be the case from reporting?
Yes. And so, he's not a free agent per se, but when he explores that, what does he find? Does he find that he likes the idea of being in New England? I mean, he has put out some pretty cryptic stuff, Tom, over the course of the last few weeks.
I'm going to go less cryptic, and I'm going to give you a quote from Kendrick Bourne, former teammate of Brandon Ayuk, speaking to our friend Kyrie Thompson. Kyrie got Kendrick on the line. Kyrie asked him, which player would you like to see the Patriots go get? Kendrick Bourne said, I want Brandon Ayuk. He's my guy. I think he'll fit in. Just being a one-on-one receiver. Come on, enlarge. At X, he could take a whole half of the field and dominate and create a lot of attention for himself. That's big in our offense, the X receiver. X receiver, of course, was populated by Devontae Parker. How well do you know Ayuk from your San Francisco days, asks Kyrie. I know him pretty well. We had a pretty good relationship when he first came in as a rookie. I was in year 3, I believe, kind of teaching him the ins and outs in the beginning. Got along pretty well. Posted a couple of things. We got some handshakes and stuff. So we've always been pretty connected and have gelled naturally.
So there you go.
Letting everybody marinate in that.
Yeah. So the cryptic things that I was referring to was, so he played at Arizona State with Jaden Daniels, and he went on an, I think it was Instagram Live with Jaden Daniels, and made it seem like maybe, now this could be me reading into it or Patriots fans that I saw posting it on Twitter reading into it, but made it seem like, hey, Thursday night, you get drafted by the Patriots, I get traded to the Patriots, and we're off and running. Otherwise, how are those two going to end up together? I don't really understand that. Maybe the Commanders could somehow swing a trade for Ayuk, but they already have Terry McLaurin.
Jaden Daniels is creating a dream team in New England.
That would be a lot of fun. Talk about excitement. Talk about an ability to sell some tickets there.
Phil, we have all this Brian Hoyer stuff to get to. We also have a conference call we need to be on. We also have a week's worth of preparation for this draft. You've been on it for months. I just started Monday. But I think that it's important that we excuse ourselves and we've given plenty of intel. I've been doing it for longer than Monday. And we're giving you plenty of intel in this pod, I think. And I want you to use it wisely and enjoy it. And we have quick slants tonight, like I said, with Hoyer. Phil and I will be on there. Phil, what's the next Pats looking like this week?
Next Pats, we got Albert Breer. And we go back and forth on what we're hearing about things that are happening at the top of the draft. So we go through the first 6 picks, and then we do a little bonus. We talk about 34 and who might be available to the Patriots at 34. That might be interesting to them.
Definitely interesting. Next time you'll hear from us via pod will be probably Thursday night or Friday morning, given the fact that we're doing a pod show, a live TV show from like 6 to midnight. So we'll talk to the Skull Crusher. Skull Crusher, what we should do is just siphon off a bunch of things from the TV, and then Phil and I will put a top on that. And then we can throw some of the other stuff in to give everybody their 20 to 25 minutes. Talk it out loud, folks. That's how the sausage gets made. Now here's Brian Hoyer, Phil Perry, and myself discussing in depth and analyzing the 4 quarterbacks involved that are on the Patriots menu. Take care. Enjoy the week. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Tom Curran. I am joined today by Brian Hoyer, longtime NFL quarterback, and, of course, Phil Perry. We're going to do a deep dive on the 4 quarterbacks the Patriots have been most linked to as their quarterback of the future. It's Jaden Daniels, it's Drake May, it's J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix. And, of course, you guys all know Brian, a 2009 Patriots acquisition. He was undrafted, but he had 2 stints here. And in his second stint was 2017 to 2022. Brian, welcome, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Oh, I'm happy to have you. Phil, we look at this. We've been doing so much work on this, you and me batting it back and forth, but it's good to have some professional eyes on this, right?
Yeah, thank God we have a big brain here when it comes to the quarterback position. What are you looking for, Brian, when it comes to college players making their way to the pro game? Are there one or two things that you look for first and foremost in terms of being able to try to project how well they'll be at the next level?
Yeah, I think for me, being new to this, the first thing I'm going to look at is physical ability. I think first and foremost, all four of these guys are capable of that. But that's what you're going to look at. What jumps out? Can they make big throws? How athletic are they? How big are they? Can they withstand hits? So a lot to dive into, and I think we'll have some good time here, going over this stuff.
This is going to be fantastic because all of these guys are varied in skills. All right, with no further ado then, let's get after the guy that we think the Patriots are most likely to wind up with at number 3. It's University of North Carolina quarterback Drake Maye. We got 5 throws lined up here. And Phil, Drake Maye, big, 6'3", 6'4", fits that prototypical mold. What do you think, Brian, about his general overall build?
Yeah, I think there's going to be obviously comparisons to big athletic guys like a Josh Allen, big, tall, strong, can run, athletic, big arm. And so having watched him a little bit to prepare for this, you see some comparisons to that.
All right, time to shoot me straight then. Drake Maye at number 3. I think people look at the upside, Phil certainly does, and says that's a player worth betting on, putting your chips on. He's young, he's going to improve. He fits the suit. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, is he the third best quarterback? I really do think so. Is he worth the third pick? I don't know that. I'm glad that I don't have to have that decision. But, he's talented, he's big, he's strong, he's been successful. If you're going to draft a quarterback, then if you're hell-bent on drafting a quarterback with the third pick, I think he's probably the one that you take because of the upside that's there.
Phil, do you like the situation for him here? I mean, you're going to sit him for a portion of time to clean up the footwork. You don't have things around him. You're going to kind of pee away 1 year of his rookie contract in some ways, and he's still not going to be surrounded by some of the players that you need.
Yeah, but that's okay to me, as long as you feel as though he's the right guy, and as long as you feel as though there is some significant improvement to be had for him because of his age, because of his relative football experience, because of, I think, something that I've been told multiple times by NFL people is that the coaching that he got and the scheme that he was in this past year was different from 2 years ago. Go back and watch that tape from 2022. You're going to see a guy who, even at 20 years old, looks a little bit more polished in a lot of ways than the guy you saw this year. So there's a balance that teams are going to have to wrestle with as they evaluate him. But I think there's enough upside there to be willing to bet on him at 3 overall. And even if you have to sit him for a year, you have Jacoby Brissett, guy that he could learn from, a guy who can take the reins and be a legitimate starter for a full season if necessary.
Real quick, we need to do a high comp and a low comp. We're going to keep this tight because we don't want to go on too long. We want to get to the other quarterbacks. But I'm going to go simply a high comp, and that's going to be a faster, less powerful armed, smidgen smaller Drew Bledsoe. And a lot of that has to do with the physical toughness, the competitiveness, the resiliency, and the poise. I think those are selling points for him. So I'm a Drew Bledsoe on the high comp for him.
Okay, I guess for me, I'll go, and I have no problem saying this. People give me crap about it, but my favorite quarterback to watch in the NFL right now is Josh Allen, and I'm going to say he's a poor man's Josh Allen is probably the high comp. That's what you're going to hope that you get, and I think Phil made a great point. If he comes here, he comes into a situation where you have a great veteran quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. You don't have to put him on the field, hopefully, for the whole year. And I think if you look at it from that standpoint, hey, we're going to draft him 3rd overall. We're going to invest great coaching, invest time with him, and give him some time. I think that's probably best case scenario. So for me, I said, he's not going to run as well as Josh Allen, and he's not as big and as strong, but there's definitely some comparisons, and if he has time to develop, I think that would be best case scenario.
You also think Josh Allen is an alien?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, when I sit down to watch football with my son, I go, this is who I want you to play like. Don't play like me. Don't play like Uncle Tom. Don't play like Jacoby. This is who I want you to be, because I really believe when you watch, even in my 15 years, the development of the quarterback position, that's where it's going. Big, strong guys who can throw, who, you prefer to really stay in the pocket, but when they take off, I mean, Josh Allen's a threat. And so A few years back, I actually asked him, to sign a jersey for my son, so it's hanging in my son's room, and that's who I tell him to model himself after.
That's awesome. I would go high comp. I'll go Justin Herbert. He's not as tall as Herbert, but I think his arm's a little less than Allen. He's not quite as fast as Allen. I think that maybe puts him in a little bit closer ballpark to Herbert. The low-end comp, I'll just tell you, there's an offensive coordinator who compared Drake May to another former UNC quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, earlier this offseason. That would obviously be the low end. That's not what Patriots fans are going to want in terms of production,
right?
Clearly.
And Mitch was a number
two.
Two. Okay, even better. Hey, let's dive into now Jaden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner from LSU. Phil, give us a skinny on what his career.
Yeah, spent the first 3 years of his career at Arizona State, ends up transferring to LSU, spends 2 years there, has an okay year in 2022, might have been, had he remained at that level, like a fourth or maybe even a third round pick. And then this year, he's an explosive play walking. 90 plays of 20 yards or more, that's through the air and on the ground. He is a dynamic threat, both with his arm and his legs. Heisman Trophy winner.
We're not doing Caleb Williams because he's going to be off the board to Chicago. We are doing Jaden Daniels. You say this is a layup. Your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is probably a crazy take. And having done, some of this work to prepare for this, I actually think he's the best quarterback in the draft. And listen to Phil talk. Does that sound similar to another LSU guy that came a few years ago?
Joe.
Transfer, kind of the junior year, okay, maybe a mid-round pick. Senior year blows up, Heisman Trophy. And when I watch Jaden Daniels, I see some comparisons to Joe Burrow.
High comp, low comp from both of you guys on Jaden Daniels.
I'll go first this time. I'll just go with Lamar.
Yeah.
He's really difficult to find a true comp for, but I think because you're not going to be able to play a lot of man-to-man against him in the NFL because he is so damn fast, the ability to win with his arm as well, which we know Lamar can do, winning 2 MVPs, I'll go with him as my high-end comp. And then the low-end comp for me, this is one that was brought to me by a coach, Brian. I'd love to hear what you think about it, is Justin Fields. And a skinnier version, obviously, of Justin Fields, because he does have a tendency to, if he feels pressure, bring his eyes down and take off. And that's great at the college level because he can rip off a 60-yard touchdown at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
It's just a question of, can you do that consistently at the next level?
Yeah, I think for my high comp, I mentioned, like in running terms, maybe he's not as fast as Lamar or as sturdy, but when he takes off, he's dangerous in running, and I would say that. But I mentioned it before, maybe it's the LSU jersey, but it's Burrow. I think he has the ability to be a drop-back passer. I actually don't see any comparison to Justin Fields because, to me, Justin Fields can't drop back and pass the way that Jaden Daniels does. I just don't see it. I think he has a calmness to him. He's played a lot of football. You mentioned he played a lot of games at Arizona State, played 2 years at LSU. To me, like I said, he's been my favorite guy watching to prepare for. And low comp, I mean, there's not much low to look to and or who to compare. I guess the low comp would be Justin Fields if he gets to the NFL and all of a sudden the rush is coming different from LSU and he puts his head down and he's trying to run all the time.
That's why it's hard with a low comp with him because he is so uniquely fast. You can only compare him to other similarly fast quarterbacks, which would be Lamar, which would be Michael Vick, and then you're kind of out of business. We're not out of business. Guys, tremendous insight on Jaden Daniels. All right, we're plowing forward. Now we're going to get to, believe it or not, my favorite guy. Phil's a Drake May guy. Brian is a Jaden Daniels guy. I actually embrace the upside of J.J. McCarthy. Phil, I don't need you deriding my guy, but explain to me the skinny on him.
I would never deride him. I would tell you this. This guy's a winner. He won at the high school level, he won at the prep level, and now he's won a national championship at Michigan. He is an athlete. He was one of the better testers we've seen in terms of his agility timing at the combine this year, and I think that shows up on tape with some of the movement that you see when he's on the field. Is thought to have a strong arm, not the strongest arm in the class, but strong enough. Brian, what do you think of him?
Yeah, I think all the things you mentioned are great traits. You can't take anything away from J.J. McCarthy because he plays on a great team. He has a great offensive line. That's nothing. That's not his fault. If anything, it's to his benefit. So I like the fact that he's a winner, like you mentioned before. Other than the fact that he's a Wolverine, being a Spartan, I don't love that. But, he's a fun guy to watch. And watching the film to prepare for this, like he makes some great plays and he's really athletic.
Phil, want to hear the high comp and low comp from me on this play?
Give it to me.
All right. To me, I look at the arm strength. I look at the foot speed. I look at the smarts. And I see high comp. The guy who was taken in 2005 in the 20s, I see Aaron Rodgers, a guy that people look at and say, well, he is a genius. Did Aaron Rodgers throw like this while he was at Cal? Not necessarily, but did he run? Yeah, he did. So to me, high comp, this player, that foot speed, that arm ability, those smarts, you could be looking at an Aaron Rodgers type. Now, low comp, Zach Wilson. So
I actually agree with you on the low comp.
Yeah, that would be a good
So let's
one.
just leave that there. I had for my high comp another guy taken in the same draft, actually taken ahead of Aaron Rodgers, and I would say Alex Smith. For a lot of the same reasons you mentioned. At the time when he was drafted number 1 overall out of Utah, by Scott McCloughan, by the way, who was worked alongside Elliott Wolf in the past and comes from that same executive tree. Good athlete, good enough arm, smart guy, doesn't turn it over like Aaron Rodgers, right? That's one of J.J. McCarthy's strengths, Brian. So I like my comp better than Tom's, but what do you think?
I agree with you more than Aaron Rodgers is a freak. When I think the one thing that people don't ever realize is how athletic Aaron is. I mean, not so much with the running and doing all those things, but his quick, twitchy muscle, build. It's amazing to, like, when I see J.J. McCarthy throw, he does have a strong arm, but the twitch is just not there. So I would actually, and it makes a lot of sense now watching him, thinking Alex Smith played for Jim Harbaugh. They kind of used JJ the same way, and he did a tremendous job. So like we said, he had a great team. His job was to make sure the team won the game, and he did that. He won the national championship, and in the same time, some built-in runs, some scrambling ability, and probably similar arm strength, I would say too. So that's a great comparison.
there's a small,
You hear that, Tom?
Yeah, I do.
It was a great comparison.
There's
Thank
a small room occupied by the greatest arms in NFL history, and it's Burt Jones, hats off to the former Patriots coach Bill Belichick. It's John Elway.
Yep.
It's Aaron Rodgers. And who's got the best arm you ever saw?
Michael Bishop.
Ooh, I have heard stories about Michael Bishop.
It was stupid.
I don't think we should leave Marino out of that.
Yeah, but Jimmy threw the same way. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to bring in our next guy. I like Jimmy's release.
You're lightning quick.
All right, this is a player in Michael Penix, University of Washington, who will not be the 3rd overall pick. I'm going to walk out on that limb right now and bounce on it, and it will not snap. But if the Patriots do take that bag and trade down, Penix is going to go in the first half of the first round. I promise you that's going to happen. So, Phil, what's the skinny on the skinny guy?
He's played a lot of college football and had one of the most productive seasons in the country last year, helping Washington get to that national championship game. Big time down the field thrower. That offense was get it to your playmakers deep, and he trusted them, and he had 3 guys to throw to that are all going to be taken before the end of round 3. All kinds of intangibles, Brian, because he overcame 4 season-ending injuries, including 2 ACL tears to his lead leg as a lefty thrower, that right knee.
Yeah, it's a great story. I enjoyed watching him play. Great touch on the deep ball, which obviously said was a big part of their offense. He does a great job of that. It's a great story, and like you said, he's going to go in the first round at some point. Clearly not at number 3, but if the Patriots decide to trade back, I think he's a good option. Later on in the first round.
High comp, low comp, Brian, from Michael Penix.
Yeah, I'll stick with, mentioned it before, the Tua comparison. I think he's probably a little bit bigger, a little bit more athletic, a little bit stronger arm version of Tua. That's probably the top you're looking at. When you look at lefty quarterbacks, you want to compare him to other lefties. Hard to think about, a low comp. I know you, off air, you mentioned Tyler Palko, which is a blast from the past. Someone that I played against in college. It's hard because is he going to go to the right team? Is he going to go somewhere where he's got to throw balls through driving force winds? You play in Gillette in December, January. Are those deep balls, are they going to start to wobble? Are they going to stay a tight spiral? So those are all things you got to think about.
Not with the massive hands, Phil.
He does have massive hands, 10.5-inch hands, so biggest hands of anybody in this draft class among the guys we've been talking about. For my high-end comp, I struggle because it's hard to get that lefty thing out of your head. And when you were talking about sort of the open stance and just letting his arm go along for the ride, I kind of can picture Steve Young a little bit. But I'm going to go just in terms of play style. I'm thinking Arizona edition Carson Palmer. Just throw that thing down the field in a Bruce Arians offense. Let your guys go make plays. He's not going to be running a whole lot and picking up yards with his legs. He's going to be from the pocket, chucking that thing down the field. I'll go Carson Palmer. And then low end, Sam Bradford. Some injury issues. Yeah. There were some injury issues with Sam Bradford as well. Big arm, though.
I'm going to go high-end Phillip Rivers, without the same level of fire, but similar throwing angles. And, I would imagine their arms were similarly strong. Rivers could throw it when he needed to, and certainly Penix can too. But I wonder how many of these and how much of these throws he'll be able to get away with at the next level. All right, that's going to be a wrap. We did fantastic. You guys were terrific with the intel, and I was a grade A point guard, I think. So, all right, we hope you're a lot smarter about these 4 quarterbacks than you were when we started. Make sure you join us Thursday, wall-to-wall NFL draft coverage. Find out who the next quarterback of the New England Patriots is going to be.